Hello and welcome back to the channel. Thanks for joining me in another of my wonderful interviews. Today I'm at Hope Sussex in East Sussex, a school, well not really a school, is it? Not in the traditional sense, but it is a place for children to come along and learn things, learn life and things. And today I'm joined by Sadie and Katy-Jo, who, well, it's your baby, isn't it?
It is. We are the founders and also the directors. There are more people that were involved with starting the project off, but we take those roles on, founders and directors. Both home educating parents ourselves, and felt the need for a community place where people could come and home educate, safe in the knowledge that their children aren't going to be indoctrinated by any hideous agendas and awful things like that. So
fantastic.
So that's what spurred it.
Just so you're already aware, we're sharing a microphone because I don't have enough independent microphones, which is a shame. But anyway, so what I want now, I've been here many times doing talks and things, which has been really exciting and good, and you do events and things to earn money to keep it going. And we did a tour which I'll link to from maybe 2 years ago now. It seems a long time ago that we did. So today I wanted really to focus in on, I suppose, why home educate your children and the future of home educating and how you guys who run it. Because every time I travel around the countryside and I talk to people and they mention you, and I say, well, isn't there anything like Hope Sussex in your area, in Lincolnshire or Shropshire or anywhere around the country far away? And there doesn't seem to be. And I think, why? Because it's so bleeding obvious that there ought to be, and children need that freedom for the future. So let's start with Sadie then. Home educated, why should people, do you think they should take their kids out of school and do this at home, and indeed come to places, if there were more, of Hope Sussex?
Oh, how long have you got, Richard? How long have you got?
We've got 20 minutes.
We've got 20 minutes. Okay, well, yeah, my background is working in mainstream school as a primary school teacher. My time in primary school, I saw huge numbers of children that do not fit in that system and in that classroom environment, and really just shouldn't be there at all. And
when you say they shouldn't be there, what do you mean they shouldn't be?
It doesn't suit them. That style of learning, it doesn't suit them being in the classroom environment. I mean, it's not really natural to put 32 children just of the same age in a group together and assume that they're all going to get on. They're all going to be learning the exact same way at the exact same time, and they're all going to be measured at the end in the exact same way of their intelligence and how much knowledge they've gained. It is a very, very outdated model of learning.
And I mean, let me just jump in on that, because when you say outdated, it's only really in the last 100 odd years this system's been in place, isn't it? Because if you think back into centuries of life, kids were part of the village community or the small town. They were being given trades and various things. Admittedly, going up chimneys and things was perhaps not the best for them, but this last 100 years, with so many part of this last 100 years, has been a huge mistake.
I would totally agree. My views on the whole education system have changed massively since I removed myself and the children from it. And I've really looked into it and done lots of research on it. And we know that, why the education system, why schools were formed, it all goes back to the Rockefellers and putting children into schools so that they could be a nation of workers, not a nation of thinkers. And, if you're awakened to a lot of things and you've gone down rabbit holes, it is a little bit crazy to put your children into a system where they're educated by the government, who have decided what your children are going to learn. They've decided what they think your children need. And ultimately, as parents, we have that knowledge. We know our children the best. And so we don't have our children for very long. It's a very small period of time that we want to give them the absolute best learning opportunities. We want to instill that lifelong learning in them. And really, in my view, that only really comes through home education and developing that real love and fascination of the world around us, which I really feel now that school totally drums out of children. And if you think really, as a parent, if you sit down and take any time to think about what it is you want for your children, what skills or what kind of attributes do you want in them, what kind of people would you like them to become, school doesn't actually put any of that into your child. You know, if you think about the things that they're going to need, you want them to be brave, to be creative, to be critical thinkers, to be problem solvers, to be kind, and all of these, to be generous. School doesn't actually teach any of those skills. In actual fact, it teaches the opposite. It teaches you to be competitive. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're not taught to work as a team. You're taught that mustn't share your answers with anybody, and that's not how we operate in life. We don't work. That's not how you work when you're in life. You're generally working with other people as a team. Remember.
Yes.
So you're not giving them the life skills they need.
So, Katy-Jo, let me ask you this question then. The first 7 years of a child's life is their most impressionable.
Yes.
So how important is it? I mean, we kind of hinted at that, Sadie's kind of hinted at that, but how important is it those first 7 years, let alone, secondary education, blah, 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 that you encourage those children to those qualities that is going to be the building blocks for their life?
So important. I mean, I know you can obviously do this at home with them, and home life is really important. If your children are at school, they're going to obviously learn all of these morals and values at home as well. But they're at school for such a long period of time, and what they're also subconsciously being programmed with is to trust authority and never question it. And that's what's really, really something that everybody needs to be aware of, is that we wouldn't have had the awful, terrible time we had 5 years ago with everybody just complying with total nonsense if everyone had been aware that actually trust yourself, use your own brain, think about things, and if it doesn't feel right, if it doesn't sound right, don't do it, don't go along with it, don't comply. But that's taught in school, isn't it? And it's taught, you don't question the doctor, you don't question the teacher. It's drummed into them. So that's something that, is subconsciously programmed in from very, very young. And also to take them from, the mother at such a young age, it's traumatic for them. And I'm sure a lot of parents out there will have experienced that, dropping your child off when they're 4 years old and they're screaming and crying and you can't even go in with them to settle them. It's just, the whole system just seems totally barbaric really now.
Can I just add a point in, is that we all went through that system. So because we all went through it, there's this kind of assumption that that's what we need to do for our children as well. But it takes someone very brave to go along and change it. You have to break that system if it's not working. And I haven't met anybody at all, really, since I've really been into education, focused on education within the last 20 years. I've not really met anybody who's said positive things about the education system. It is a very broken system, and just to kind of put your child back into it and assume that that's the right thing to do is crazy. And I know people will be listening to this thinking...
Don't worry.
This is the reality of life at home.
You can't. I think she's just off camera. And the poor lady's trying to pass very discreetly, and the bucket fell over. But
bucket's gone.
This is the sort of thing. These things don't matter, do they? In an environment like this.
No, not at all.
That's one of our amazing mums, community members, who's mopping the floor.
Absolutely.
So things don't stop for interviews, I'm afraid.
Absolutely. And,
no.
And why not?
So many things to do.
and I mean that sort of reflects really the relaxed nature of what you do here. You don't have a bell that people can go to the loo when they need to go to the loo.
No, you just holler.
Drama!
Everybody in!
But
children in various dens and bases and playing, they all come running. So it works.
So, but that's it. I mean, and school has that very regimental soldier feel. The bell goes. Everyone's got to line up. You've got to, you've got to wear the uniform. You've got to comply.
Stand still.
Which is all part of a training for the hamster wheel of life to earn money for them.
Yeah.
So we're in and my audience will know, we're in a flux at the moment with more people waking up, understanding what's gone wrong with the world. Finally people are beginning to sort of understand it. Some of them know about it but are reticent to changing things because they feel impotent and unable to do things themselves, and perhaps don't know that places like Hope exist, which is, something. And if they pull their kids out of, as my partner, lovely Julia, is then finding the counsellor on their back going, what are you teaching them? Is it right? Is it, does it adhere to our policies? Like, we want nothing to do with your bloody policies. I'll point of pulling them out. What do you think the future is for children and education?
Well, I mean, I'd like to say that not all councils do behave like that. The LEA that I deal with have been nothing but lovely to me. And I've been honest with them. I've said what Tommy's doing and said, and I did the same for Poppy May. I did the same for Molly Ann. And they've always been very happy and left me well alone.
Right.
So I've never had any trouble at all. I think you have trouble if you ignore them. They have a duty of care. I do understand that as well. There are children out there that maybe aren't getting the education they should have. But I don't think... I've never had them say, well, he's not doing enough of this or he's not doing enough of that. And it should totally be up to the parent to think what is priority and what's not for your child. That's, at the end of the day, they're your children, and we've got massive state overreach going on in some councils, But for me, I took Molly Ann out in year 7, so I did school her through primary school, and then at year 7, secondary school, took her out, didn't know anything about home education at all, didn't know anybody who home educated. I just had a gut feeling that it was just really, the worst thing I could be doing. And
keeping them at school?
Keeping her at school
would
I just would see, this decline happening in her mental and emotional well-being. And let's face it, that's top priority, isn't it, for our children? We want happy, well-grounded, children that aren't.
Well, they're the next generation, of course, and if we're going to make change in this world, we need children who are free thinkers and critical thinkers.
Yeah.
But I guess people are concerned about the future, obviously. I am very optimistic actually about the future because
Me too.
their system is falling apart.
Yeah.
So what do you see as the future of homeschooling and hubs like this that can launch children into...
It's growing.
It's
hugely growing,
increase.
massively.
Massively.
I'm not worried about the children's wellbeing in schools bill. It is a draconian piece of legislation. It's trying to totally vilify. It's a piece of lawfare against home educating parents. My advice to people who are considering it is to take your children out now while you can, because they are going to make it incredibly difficult. They're trying to make it difficult to remove your children from school. The reason they have done that is absolutely nothing to do with children's well-being in any way. And they've used the horrendous case of the poor child who was being subjected to abuse by her parents and was killed. They're using that as a case for the all of this piece of lawfare.
And how many times does that happen?
Oh, yes, exactly. It's so rare.
And she wasn't even home educated.
She wasn't, no. She'd been failed by schools for years and years and years where and social services. They had not done anything about the abuse that they were witnessing and they'd seen and the bruises on her body. And then she was removed from school, and then she'd been at home for 2 months and they decided that it was home education that killed her. It's absolute lunacy. I am seeing a lot of fear among the wider home ed community, not among our awakened home ed community. We have been working closely with the People's Lawyer, David Edelman, who you know, who has drafted something absolutely brilliant. It's very similarly based on the notices that were used by the NHS to avoid the mandates of the COVID vaccine. So it's a notice that we will use to basically say to the government, okay, we will apply, we will absolutely abide by and follow your rules, and if you can just, confirm that you can do all of these. So can you ensure that my child is going to get the adequate education? Do you know how my child learns? And all of these things. And if they can follow all of those, which of course they won't be able to, then yeah, you can have my child back in school. There's no way, and there's not even the school places for all of the children.
We've got about definitely over 100,000 children being home educated now.
Easily
in this country,
easily,
probably
yeah.
more.
And where are you going to put them?
Where are
Exactly.
they going?
There's not the infrastructure.
There's no
No.
school places for these children.
No.
There's not the infrastructure to go and interrogate every single family that's home educating, for sure, either. The LEA couldn't cope with that. They don't have the workforce for it. So I really don't want people to worry about it. But I do agree with Sadie. Now is the time to get your children out, because that is going to be the hardest thing, I think.
It is going to be,
getting
they're going
them
to
out.
make it difficult. And the reason they've done this,
You don't want them in there anyway.
The reason they've done this is because they don't want you home educating.
Yes.
They are worried about a nation of critical thinkers,
Yes.
about a future generation of children who are
Question.
able to question
Yes.
and stand up to authority. And absolutely, we are really positive about doing that at Hope. In every opportunity we teach the children to be confident, to stand up, to deliver their work, to not be afraid at all, because confidence is the key thing, absolutely. And where school is absolutely drilling confidence out of children, we at Hope Sussex are doing the complete opposite.
Yes, and where the children are, they're not stuck in one certain age group. They're all mixed. There are some lessons that they are in more of their age group, but there's a real sense of community here, all ages. So they are confident being around adults, around other, ages of.
So they can integrate into society very easily.
Exactly. It's crazy when they put them in these age categories constantly, which actually caps their learning and their progress and keeps them, from excelling. It's the complete opposite to what they need for what they need to thrive. Really, it's the complete opposite.
But safety in numbers as well. This is why I'd like people to form, home education community hubs around the country. And we've had a lot of people visit us from all over the world and, all over the country, and speak to us about it, about how we did it, how to go forward. We've advised several which have gone away and formed CICs like we are, which is brilliant. But definitely, together as a community, you are stronger. You've got people to talk to, people to rely on, advice, all of those things. When you home educate on your own, it can be incredibly isolating.
Yes.
We've both done that.
Yes.
And taxing as well. You've got the children 24/7. It can be quite. As much as people love their children, school has given people a break, go to work, earn a living, etc., and effectively become a babysitting service.
Yes, it has.
And indoctrination. What happens to the children? That you've seen that have now got to the point where they're older, they've gone off into the world, as whatever it is they're doing? What do you see as the children as they leave here to go off and work? Or
my daughter's doing a degree course. She was 15 when she went to college. She left here, and she could only do that because she was home educated. And she's absolutely loving. She's doing what she's always wanted to do. She's on a performing arts course, and it wasn't a case of you can't go till you're 16 because you have to get these GCSEs. And
right.
There's no point in doing that. She knew what she wanted to do. She had the talent. She had the focus and the drive. So go and do it. And I was only able to do that because I home educated her.
And that's the fear that I've heard from people who said, well, if you home educated, will they get the grades? Will they eventually it's like kind of will they funnel back into the system because they don't know any different?
There's so many different ways to get into different courses, and it doesn't just come down to 10 GCSEs.
No.
Right.
We've got children
people have
here.
got to remember that.
Yeah, we have had children who have taken GCSEs. We've got a 100% pass rate here on our GCSEs. We've got children, my daughter did GCSEs here, passed them all, got some A's, is now at college, and actually found the transition into college quite tricky, because she'd been here and then it was going back into college, and she was like, wow, it's like, this is like mainstream, but loved it and found it, and has found the whole experience of home educating. I home educated her all the way through her secondary school. She, like I said, she did really well with her GCSEs. She's actually come back here as a tutor.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's amazing.
She's now tutoring here.
Well, I was gonna-
yeah, in English.
I was going to say that, you know, if people come from places like this and they go back into the mainstream, into universities and whatever, they're also planting the seed of open-mindedness and critical thinking that other people who've come through the system may not have. And so helping other people,
Yeah.
you know, to be able to, I say, excuse me, can I just ask you about that? Well, no one's ever asked about that before. That's because we're not trained to ask.
Well, her feedback from all of her tutors is that she asks the most questions
Aha.
in all of her classes.
There you go.
And that's definitely because of home education. In fact, I've had the tutors have said that to me.
Yeah.
She stands out amongst the other pupils because of it.
Well, that,
So-
that is amazing.
Yeah, I think it genuinely instills a confidence in children and a way that they can communicate with adults that has been lost.
And
through
isn't that
schooling.
what children, the building blocks of life is all about, so that the rest of your life you have those skills which are much more important than a GCSE and maths and English and all those other things.
It's much more important than just having your brain just shoved with loads and loads of facts that you're just memorising.
Yeah.
And then it's literally a memory test, isn't it?
Yes,
All of it. You're not
absolutely.
learning those vital
No.
skills that will stay with you and help you to continue that learning.
And how much, I know you've got to go and teach in a second, so I better let you go, but one of the things that many people often say is, and certainly when you learn to drive, it's so obvious, you learn to drive and then once you you learn to pass the test, and then once you've passed the test, you learn to drive as you go about real life.
Absolutely.
School
And in
seems-
your own way.
in
we
your
all
own
drive
way.
in our own way, don't we?
And presumably that's the same, that once you've gone through some sort of education system, how much have you learnt since you left the old system?
Yeah, I've had to completely kind of unschool myself as a teacher as well. Yeah, absolutely. I have had to do that.
And you never
it's-
stop?
No,
You've
I've
never
never
stopped
stopped.
learning?
You never stop learning.
No.
And I love that. I'm learning with the children that I teach, and I love that. The whole thing is a brilliant process. Yeah.
It's exciting as well to be an independent tutor, to not have the restraints of the national curriculum,
Yes.
not having to, right, you must teach this at this time, you know. And what if a child is getting really engrossed in that subject or that topic and you want to continue it, or you want to branch off down a different avenue that the whole class is excited about? You know, you can make the session so much more fun and exciting for yourself as the teacher and also for the children.
Yes.
Rather than being told this is
And-
what you
and I
have to
can
do
imagine
at this time.
Any teacher
and-
watching this must be nodding their heads thinking, I've got all these books, I've got to mark them in a certain way by a certain time and
Yeah.
fit in these
the
lessons.
workload is unbelievable
Horrendous. Yeah.
for
Well, listen, thank you
teachers.
for your time. I appreciate that you're very busy. You've got lunch to get for the kids. You've got to do some teaching and all of that. And of course, we've got the sunshine, so we must make the most of that whilst they're not spraying. Sadie and Katy-Jo at Hope Sussex, thank you so much for coming on the show and
ever
telling
so
about
much,
it.
Richard. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
So there we are, ladies and gentlemen. Do pull your kids out of school. I know it sounds daunting, but you will be doing your children the best favour you can possibly do. And thank you for watching. I'll be back with more wonderful guests and so on. Until next time, from Sadie and Katy-Jo and myself, goodbye.